I didn't know anything about Illumina until last spring. Tracey Hodges and I, she's the head of the science department, we were approached by Mike Kreitzinger, who is a Milton Panther from way back. And he is now a head salesperson with the Illumina company, which manufactures and maintains equipment that does genetic testing. If you've ever used 23andMe or Ancestry.com, well, their equipment is probably what's running the DNA samples for those things. He came with a proposal, one that we could hardly refuse. He said, next year in the fall, maybe about November, we'd like to bring in a genetic sequencer, a DNA sequencing apparatus, and present it to your students, along with some people from Illumina who can build up a base of knowledge for them in genomics.
I think this is the first time in recorded history that that genomics scientists have been to a school, at least to a high school at the very least, which is a very historic moment.
Late October, the equipment arrived. Illumina sent an engineer, Ashley Anderson, and she spent 2 days putting the equipment together, organizing the reagents they're going to need, and things like that. Tracey and I put together some of the scheduling. Well, we planned to use the library and have our classes come in, along with other classes from other science teachers that wanted to visit. The first day was pretty much information. They presented some PowerPoint programs and a lot of interaction with the students about genetics and what DNA means and what their DNA means. Then on Tuesday, we had the students involved in extracting their own DNA. There's a commercially available kit where they can use the cheek cells and extract a sample of their own DNA. They get to see what it looks like. It's not like a fancy sample, it's just a little stringy thing in a test tube, but when they're finished, they get to keep the sample and make a little necklace to wear around their neck. But this was engagement. We had, I guess, a couple hundred students overall involved in this, in groups, and exchanging information, collaborating with each other, doing some high-level critical thinking. When something didn't go right, how do we fix it? We had selected out a group of 8 students who were working with Dr. Gedman doing actual DNA preparation.
So what they've done today is they've taken the raw DNA that we received from the panther and we are chopping it up into fragments so that it is easily sequenced on our instrument. The last step that we're doing through library prep is actually adding adapter sequences to the DNA so that we can actually capture it on our flow cell and complete the sequencing process. So do you know why we want to leave it on the magnet while we're doing all of these steps? To make sure the pellet is there. Yes, because we want the pellet. We don't want to get rid of the pellet.
Well, what I'm hoping that the kids get from this, number one, is that they're seeing 3 female scientists that are actually doing real science.
Yesterday we prepared our panther DNA for sequencing. What that involves is we take large fragments of genomic DNA from the panther and we need to chop it up into smaller sizes so that it's able to be sequenced. In the process called library prep, we attach sequencing adapters to the genomic DNA so that it's able to be captured and sequenced on the flow cell.
The third day of our program, and the samples are ready. So today, the Illumina professionals will come in, they'll show the students how the machine works, use a human sample of DNA to show them how it's going to create a human genome. And by the way, the first human genome was extracted and sequenced about 10-15 years ago. Cost $3.5 billion.
I've just been excited about it, just the potential, because I was here when they were talking about the human genome back in 2003, and it took 10 years to sequence the entire genome, and now we can do it in 26 hours, and the potential benefits from this type of technology is endless.
They're presenting to the students how this is useful practically.
At the moment, we are learning about genomics and how that is important and the ways that we can use genomics. And I didn't even know what genomics was before I stepped into the library and learned about it on Monday. But it's sequencing to help in all sorts of fields like medicine. You know, if you are allergic to something, they can find something else that can potentially stop the disease that's spreading through your body. Or, you know, an unborn baby, if they have some type of birth defect, they can sequence something that could potentially help the baby when they're born.
I think being able to be exposed to this at such a young age, knowing that DNA and sequencing is going to be a part of their life throughout their whole lifetime, it's nice to be able to get an understanding early on. So hopefully, if not today we didn't get the aha moment, it's going to come later down the road, whether they're being treated, they have a family member being treated, or if they want to just take an ancestry test and learn about themselves and their past and their history.
So we pretty much, we drank some Kool-Aid, switched it around our cheeks, it collected some cheek cells. We kind of spit it into a little cup, which we poured into here. Then we poured in some, what did we pour in? Like some glycol and stuff to where the DNA would actually come visible, which is quite awesome actually. See these little tiny little things here? That's DNA. The very thing that makes you, you. It's pretty interesting to think about, isn't it?